You have to understand that your life is a spiral. It's not a straight line, it's a spiral. So you keep coming back to the same things over and over again just to understand. When people say, I have 30 years experience doing this, you didn't have 30 years experience doing that. You were just stuck in the same place for 30 years. You couldn't figure out a way to get out of that place. Do you ever feel like your life is not changing? Like you're in the same place, doing the same things, and nothing much is changing, but you start feeling like you're changing, but nothing on the outside is changing much? I remember when I was working in a bar like 7 years ago, and I remember when I'd finish the shift from 6 p.m. and I'd finish at midnight, and then all of the staff would have staffies, I think they call them here in Australia, like beers after the shift. And I'd be drinking one of the pints, and at the time I'd stopped drinking quite a bit. It was the only time that I'd have a drink. And I remember when I would drink this beer, I would think, why am I doing this? Like, I don't want to be doing this. Why am I doing this? And I don't want to be in an environment of drinkers. Why am I in an environment of drinkers? And it was one of the first moments in my life that I had this realization of, I don't have to be here. Like, this is actually not who I am, and it's not who I want to be, more importantly. And so today we're going to speak about this, like being in this cycle that just seems to be never ending. And we're going to read from a poem in my first book that's coming out very soon. I know I say it in a few videos, but it is coming out soon, don't you worry. But as I was told by a friend, the best thing to do with work that matters is not to rush it. And just remember that if you're doing anything that matters to you right now, don't rush it. So this poem is called The Same Pot. And I want to give a bit of a premise to the book. So the book is about a seed, and it says that you hold the seed to your new life and only you can plant it. And where this seed is planted is at the rock bottom. So you actually like dig yourself into this hole, and it's your job to plant the seed and climb your way out of there. And that's how the book kind of starts. But I want you to hear that very closely. It says that you dig your own hole. It's not anyone else that's digging it, it's you that's digging it. And part of where the book starts is how you actually dig this hole. And that's what we're going to look at today. So how you actually get in the hole that you might find yourself in right now. So this poem is called The Same Pot, and I'm going to read about a third of it. It says, you have been in the same pot for so long. You keep driving the same roads, listening to the same music on the radio. You are in a job you only enjoy every now and then, and you think that's how it's meant to be. The end of your week leaves you weak, and at the start of your week, you put back on your mask that only you can see. So one of the first things that you can notice about this poem is it says you keep driving the same roads, listening to the same music on the radio. That repetition of the word same, because that's what it feels like, right? It's just like you're doing the same thing over and over again, nothing's changing. And if you live this baseline life, then in my view, you're living a life that's going downhill. Whereas life is meant to be lived like this. And so a lot of people are living straight-lined lives. But how you get into the life like this that constantly improves and you feel like you're constantly becoming someone more than who you currently are, you have to understand that your life is a spiral. It's not a straight line, it's a spiral. So you keep coming back to the same things over and over again just to understand a deeper truth. I'll say that again. Life is a spiral. Your life is a spiral. You keep coming back to the same thing that you thought you understood, only to see a deeper truth. And I know Albert Einstein has this great quote that says, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome or a different result. And that's how a lot of people live. And that would class everyone as being insane. And what's funny is that the better that you get at playing the game of life, you realize that repetition and predictability are actually good things. But on this level that we're talking about here, if you're repeating things that aren't working, or if you can predict how your life is going to be in 5 years because it's just going to be the exact same as right now, then that's not a good thing. And you might be watching this right now and be thinking, Jack, you don't understand. Like I have my job to go to. I can't get out of that. I have this. I can't change many things. And it's like, okay. My answer to that is, if you can't change your outward environment, then change your inner environment. I was talking to this guy the other day and he gets very emotional and very reactive and lashes out sometimes when his partner talks to him. And his view was like, why isn't she changing? And he's putting it all on her. And it's like, okay, if she's not going to change, if anything outside of you is not going to change, then what can you change? You can always change. It's your greatest power that you have is being able to control how you react. I know there's that great quote that says you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react what happens to you. And so much, like so much of your life is in how you react. And reaction is not external, it's an internal thing. And when you start changing your reactions to things, so much of, I can't emphasize this enough, so much of your life is going to change. Like you won't be in this same pot that we're talking about. You won't be in this same environment, feeling the same, thinking the same. Because when you go inward, something's been, like for example, my dad, I used to come home every night when I was a teenager from tennis practice. I'd come home every night, I'd see him sitting on the couch, and he would ask me the exact same question. How was tennis? And as a teenager, I wasn't that open or aware, so I was just like, good. And then I just walked off because there was so much more going on in my life. And I would always get pissed off because he would ask the same question. Until one night, the exact same thing happened. I come home from tennis practice, my dad asked me the exact same question, but this time I go inward and I see what I was gonna say, what I always would say, which was good, and then keep walking. Maybe I can say, good, how was your day? And then we actually like get into a conversation. But for years, my dad and I never had any conversation. We had this broken relationship. And it was because I wasn't changing my inner environment. Like you can't change people, but you can change yourself. And the amazing thing is that when you change yourself, the people around you change. It's one of the most magical things that I've experienced in my life. I know you know so many people that live like this, and maybe even you're living like this. And it just astonishes me how for years, I didn't question when I would come home from my job and my parents would ask me, how was your day? And I'd say, yeah, it was all right. And I didn't really recognize it at the time that if I was spending 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of my day at a job and I come home and I say it was all right, then that means 9 hours of my day was just all right. And you're awake for like 12, 16 hours, right? That's a lot. That's more than half of your day that you're just all right. And you're committing to that for the rest of your life, or at least like the years to come, for a long time. And it just woke me up one day that I don't want to live like, yeah, it was all right. And you go to your job and the famous question is, how you doing? Yeah, doing pretty good. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah, living the dream. Yeah. And the fact of it is you're just living a freaking nightmare. But the worst thing is that I went on like this for so long. I was in a job that I didn't enjoy for so long. And I really, truly thought that's how it was meant to be, because that's how everyone speaks about work, right? It's like, oh, I just heard a guy the other day, we were at a play date with my daughter and he had to leave. He had to go early and he said, oh yeah, off to work. Yeah. Oh no, I wish I was staying here. And it's like, well, and why don't you get a nicer, like, why don't you get a job that fulfills you more? Because you're spending a lot of time at that job. And it just made so much sense to me when I started thinking about it that way. And I think the old school thinking of it is, and you have to do something that you don't enjoy in order to get something that you do enjoy. And my thinking of it is, well, why don't you just find something that you really enjoy and try and make a life out of that and go toward more things that you can enjoy? But yeah, I think that's the key. I think for many years for me, I didn't even question it. And I think that's the worst, is when you don't question it. When it becomes the norm. When it happened to your parents did that for their work and they'd come home and be like, yes, tired, and they just sit on the couch and do not much. It's like, no, you're meant to actually feel energized with the work that you do. And that's who I wrote this book for. I wrote the book for people who want to go toward that way of life. And so next time you come home from work, pay attention to how you respond when someone asks you, how was your day? Because you might say, pretty good. And maybe it was like an okay day, but pay attention not only to what you say, how you respond to that question, but how you say it. Because how you say it is everything. For example, if someone asks you, how was your day? And you say, yeah, it was great. It was great. Or if someone asks you, how was your day? And you're like, oh, it was great. It was great. You see, I said the exact same thing, but I said it differently. And so pay attention to how you say it. If you say it like, yeah, it was great, then you're not in the right place. And so we come to this final line here that says, the end of your week leaves you weak, and at the start of your week, you put back on your mask that only you can see. I remember when we were on the other side of Australia and we were just starting, my partner was pregnant and we were just coming back to Western Australia to have my daughter. I remember thinking at the time, like, we didn't have much money at all. And I was like, man, I got to get a job, but I don't want to do anything. I was so committed to writing this book, and I didn't want to do anything that I didn't enjoy. And I remember what one of my family members said to me. He was like, Jack, like, are you serious? I spent 30 years working in a place that I didn't enjoy, and every single morning I walked into that office, I had to put on a mask and do my job. And I was thinking, man, that sucks. I'm really like, he was telling me to like pump me up to do something that I didn't really want to do, but I was just there thinking, man, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Because to me, that was just pretending to be content and hiding the inner struggle that you really had. Because what I've realized in my experience of life so far, and I'm 27, is that the more that you bury these emotions, the more that you actually are burying yourself alive. Like, your emotions are not meant to be buried. They're meant to come out. They're meant to serve you at a very high level, at your higher purpose. But a lot of people, they're not in touch with their emotions. And if they hear something that disturbs them a little bit, then they just like shove it back down. They don't do anything about it, and therefore nothing much changes in their life. But I'm telling you, your emotions are some of your greatest teachers. But we lose that with doing jobs that we don't enjoy, with alcohol, other drugs, parties, whatever, television, all these other things. They all suppress the emotions that you can use to rise above and go toward the person you're meant to be. Because your soul wants to be free. Like, the world wants to reward you. I spoke in the last video about taking risks. The world wants you to take risks. It wants you to do something different. It doesn't want you to follow in traditions or follow in the footsteps of your family. It wants you to go it, and it wants you to go alone. And that doesn't mean you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. It means that you're going to find people who resonate with the way that you want to live your life. And I heard one of my mentors say this, and it's a pretty tough thing to hear as well. But when people say, I have 30 years experience doing this, and for most people's cases, it's, you didn't have 30 years experience doing that. You don't have 30 years experience doing that. You were just stuck in the same place for 30 years. You couldn't figure out a way to get out of that place. And it's a tough thing to hear, but it's true. I was reading the other day about a tortoise and how when it recluses into its shell, it does that because it doesn't want its soft parts to be attacked by predators. But the cool thing is that you're not a tortoise, and predators aren't going to come and attack you. So your soft parts don't need to be hidden from people. Your soft parts are meant to be embraced. They're meant to get out into the world. In fact, that's what the world needs more of. And so ask yourself right now, why do you shy away from your feelings? Like, why are you burying feelings that need to be addressed? It was one of the first things when I met my partner, Valentina. When I went into her room, one of the first things I saw was on her mirror, she had written a note that said, don't run from your feelings. Confront them, face them. And I was always this quiet, introverted kid that kept everything to myself. And she taught me to face things, like say things. And even now, sometimes I'm like that turtle. I start feeling these things because I'm a sensitive person, and I get into my shell, and then she'll ask me, what's the matter? And I try and block it out like, yeah, nothing. But she knows, obviously, she knows me better than anyone. And I say, nothing. And then she goes, just tell me. And then I say it. And then she's like, it's not that bad, is it? You just have to say it. And I'm like, you're right. I know it's difficult, especially as a man. Like, I realized this when I went to the other side of Australia, and I was staying at this retreat center, and it was like 95% women. And I remember just nearly all the conversations, they were just talking about how they were feeling and what they were thinking. Whereas guys, they just talk about like doing things and like sports and like all of these outside things, whereas women talk about what's going on the inside. And I realized that that's what true communication is, but guys don't find it very easy to do that. And so in my previous videos, I've mentioned that I learn a lot about nature, and I write a lot about nature too, and what I learn from it and what you can learn from it too. And one of those things is this idea of being soft and expressing your more gentle sides more often. And if you look at nature, like the ocean, the air, fire, earth, leaves on a tree, all of these things are very soft things. And why nature is soft and finds its strength in its softness is because when something is soft, it's flexible. And when it's flexible, it doesn't break as easy. But when things are very strong, like you think about a dead stick, it's very stiff, it breaks, it snaps easily. And you'll find that the people who put on like the biggest persona and they're trying to be someone who they're not, they're trying to be this big, tough person, and they're the ones who crack the easiest because they're so hard on the inside. So the very feelings that you have that you're burying, that are destroying you, these can be used as a sidewalk to save your life, to change your life. It's so magical when you get in this mind frame. And you might be thinking, well, no, there are hard things in nature. Well, let me give you one of the hardest things in nature, and that's a rock. Even rocks, over millions of years, they break down. They become soft. What do they turn into, rocks, over millions of years? They become grains of sand. And that's what you have to do too. You have to realize what you're made of. You're made of softness. And these grains of sand that a rock is made of is lighter than the rock. And so when you break yourself down and start embracing these feelings that you've been burying for so long, I promise your whole being will just become lighter. Or else these emotions, you're just going to keep feeding yourself these heavy rocks and carrying around these heavy rocks, and everywhere you go it's just heavy and it's the same thing and it's just dragging you down all the time. Life's not meant to be like that. Remember, life is a spiral. You continuously come back to things you thought you understood in order to see deeper truths. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're on 82 subscribers as I'm filming this video, so super exciting. Let me know what you think of this video, if you had any like realizations or revelations and what you can do in your life. It also helps me, it feeds back into me to help me with future videos. So let me know down below. I hope you have a great day. As always, be kind, be caring, be courageous, and I'll see you on the next video. Lots of love.